Okay, we are at the Near Dark Fest in Oakland. We are with Hagar the Womb. Let's introduce yourself first.
I'm Ruth. I'm Karen.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Your first release was on Motorhead Records, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What year was this, and how did you get on that label?
It was 1984, and we got on the label because Colin from Conflict, who ran Motorhead, asked us to do something on Motorhead, and we said, will you give us badges, which I think are known as pins?
Yes.
Or buttons? Okay, so will you give us badges if we do? And he said yes.
So we did it for badges, really. That's why we wanted. We've never had a badge before.
Yeah.
And we had a giraffe, and we wanted to put it on that badge.
Because we got all Rubella Ballet's badges, which they got free because they worked at a badge producing company called Better Badges, and we put our own badges over their badges, but we wanted badges of our own, so we didn't have to do that anymore. I mean, we all believe in DIY, but you know, that went too far.
And this is your first time here in America, right?
Yes.
Why aren't you doing a full tour, just doing a one show? Like, why aren't you playing in Los Angeles or like doing a full tour?
This sounds so rubbish, but I'm the only person that's ever been over to this part of America before, and everyone wanted to spend some time hanging out, looking at stuff in San Francisco, doing all the touristy sightseeing stuff, and we didn't want it to feel like work, and try to do that because it was the first time for the rest of the people who came over to be on this part of the American coast. We just didn't want to mix the two, so we've had a few really brilliant days of just hanging out in Oakland and San Francisco, and then this one thing at the end and we go back home tomorrow. But we've already had talks with Brianne about maybe a West Coast tour starting in LA next year.
We've had such a lovely time. People are so friendly. The scene's so alive here that we really want to come back as soon as we can and see all the other great places. But we've loved Oakland and San Francisco, so it's been a great experience for us. Wish we'd done it years ago. We shouldn't have waited so long.
Yeah.
How many original members are still in the band, and what made you come back together all this year? Oh, oh, wow, that's really rare.
Today, not all our original members are here today. Sadly, our bass player Mitch, he has a record, an unfair criminal record, and he wasn't allowed in, and also our drummer couldn't get in because he's playing another festival. So just for this one, we've got 2 new band members, and they've done an amazing job. But when we're in England, we play with all the original players. We did have a 25-year rest, which is why we still love each other.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Get ready. I need to get ready. All right. Okay, so how did all of Hagar the Womb meet, and what did you all aim to accomplish with this band?
I'm ashamed to say we met in the toilet in the Wapping Anarchy Centre. Most of us were at college, and we just discovered how great anarchist punk was, and we used to go to the Wapping Anarchy Centre, which was set up by Crass, and we also saw lots of boys forming bands, and we thought, hell, why can't we form a band too? And there was a gig coming up in 2 weeks' time, and we said, yeah, we're going to play it, and we had 2 weeks to learn how to play in a band. The other reason is also I fancied someone in Flux of Pink Indians, and I wanted to get off with him, and I thought I'd be more likely to if I was a singer in a band.
Oh my gosh.
And it never happened. We never got to snog anyone in the anarchist scene, but we loved being in a band, and so that's what we carried on. But we also wanted more women. Even though it was a very political scene, we didn't think there were enough women in bands, and we wanted to show that anyone could get up, even a bunch of girls doing their A-levels, you know.
Absolutely. So how did Mitch end up in the band then, if you guys wanted an all-girl band?
We couldn't find enough of us that could play our equipment. It's true.
That's okay. It was such a male-dominated scene there were just not enough women, and there were originally like 5 or 6 of us girls, and we all wanted to sing because we didn't want to learn anything. So it was never about being in a band to be able to play. It was about being in a band to get noticed and to say the stuff that we wanted to say. So, like Nicola, I always say this, she was too short. She never reached the microphone. You know, so she's going to kill me if she ever is.
She lives in Australia now.
She lives in, I'm safe, I think. But, you know, so we ended up taking on some of our friends to play guitar and drums and things like that.
Very cool. Okay. So the next question I was going to ask. Sorry, I'll give you the name next. What benefits did Hagar the Womb take place in the 1980s, and what are some of the social issues that have been for most of the root importance for the band?
In the 80s, we had Thatcher's Britain, so we did a lot of benefits for the miners and for people who were like downtrodden in the Thatcher regime. But it was the miners. She was trying to decimate the mining industry and the working class in the UK, basically. So that's the one. We did, CND benefits. We did peace benefits. We did. That just sort of animal rights. There were so many because the anarcho-punk scene was so political, unlike the punk that had come before. So it was more benefits than anything else. Benefit after benefit after benefit.
We never made any money. We made no money. But there were enough venues in London and all around the country that you could play a different gig, 4 or 5 nights a week. And we just went out and played. We were students. We were living in the same house together. We lived off lentils, and we could play as much as there were the gigs out there.
Were you all squatting at the time as well?
Yes.
What was which squats were you staying in? I've heard about, this may be a separate area, but the Vauxhall squatters over with anti-anxiety and all them. I don't know if you guys were related with any of that scene at the time.
We had, there were various people in various squats that I started my career. It wasn't really a squat, but it was with Kill Your Pet Puppy.
Okay.
They had what they call puppy mansions, and my dad chucked me out. They came round and asked if I wanted to live there, and I said no. I was at home with mum and dad, but my dad chucked me out for having red hair the week after. So, so that was quite good because I had somewhere to go. And then we moved to New Cross, which was a housing co-op, and still is. So squats and housing co-ops and some sort of alternative types of social housing, hardly any of those exist anymore now. Yeah.
We could afford to be in a band because we had no housing costs. We squatted, we had benefits, and so we could afford to go out and play every day. We didn't expect to make any money. All we wanted to do was spread out the message, and that's what we did for years and years till we grew up and went to college again.
Do you have a question? No? Okay, all right, let me pull out another one. What's your question, Dave?
What do you think about the ups and downs of availability of recording, distribution, communication these days versus the underground system that you dealt with?
Blimey, that's a tough one.
And what would that be in a sentence?
Things like cassettes, because what we used to do was there was a system of putting out a lot of cassettes. They were very cheap. They were very, good overheads. They were very easy to hand out to people. Quite often we gave them out free to people. But nowadays we're on a record label called Grow Your Own, which is also run by a member of our band, and actually they're going back to that DIY principle and bypassing record labels, because we had some bad experiences with record labels, and actually the technology is there that they're getting the stuff, printing it all out, and we are actually distributing our own music again. So we're actually going back to what we did in the 80s.
They are actually not just the only thing they're pressing professionally is the albums, the vinyl themselves. They're actually doing all the covers themselves, printing them out, stapling them, gluing them together, and it's not just cassette covers, it's albums. The album covers downstairs for our new 10-inch EP, EP not album, Hagitate, have all been produced on Steph and Oscar's living room tables and kitchen tables. They've bought the printers, they do everything, all the designs, the gluing together. So they've really taken it back to how we started off. Yeah.
That's great. I had a question. It seems like a vein of the band that seems to go throughout it is self-reliance and keeping cheery even though when the world is falling around you. And I was going to ask, does that happen to be the inspiration for the song One Bright Spark?
That is definitely what One Bright Spark was about. Partly we got laughed at a lot because we were young girls and because we portrayed a jollier image, and partly it was a reaction because we realised that even though there were lots of very grim things going on in the world when we were playing, there was a lot of solidarity, there were a lot of positive things. We were young teenagers, there was a lot of fun around too, and we always wanted to capture that and not just be miserable. So we had things like be happy, be aware, be optimistic. Some people liked that, some people didn't like that, some people put us down for it, but other people appreciated it. And I think now we still get the feedback that actually after a night of seeing lots of men going some people, people who can laugh at themselves makes a nice change, and so we've just stuck with that attitude.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can I just add to that it was Chris, our drummer, wrote that, and it was a reflection of the scene at the time where people felt to be as political and as switched on and as anti, fighting against all the injustices and everything. They had to say it like they meant it, and all of a sudden these bands all wore black, and it's kind of like a fight against this. Yeah. All of a sudden it seemed like a uniform. It seemed a uniform that you had to wear you had to have a certain look, you had to sing a certain way, you had to have the same topic in songs. So we'd write about men in frocks, for example, because everyone else was saying we want to grow up, not blow up, and so did we. But it was really a push against that kind of mentality that if we didn't look like them, we weren't part of it, and we shouldn't be part of it, and we should just go. And we did have that. We had quite a lot of that from the anarcho scene. As much as we were embraced, they didn't really know what to do with us, and they pushed us. Some of them pushed us.
So you were kind of proving in a sense that you can be political and you can still be happy and enjoy yourself and enjoy your friends and and try to still see the bright side on the other side, and believe in hope.
Yes, that's why we used to do a cover of Puff the Magic Dragon, just because no one else did it at the time, and A, it would annoy people, but B, also give them a bit of light relief. If you've been singing lots of songs about animal experimentation, then why not have a jolly song? And one of the songs we'll be playing tonight is based on a Boney M song.
Oh, wow.
And so we love disco, we love other songs.
Do you know Puff the Magic Dragon?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it translated. It was Puff the Magic Dragon lives by the sea. He doesn't have a lot to do, but he believes in anarchy. Oh, I mean, what's not to love?
Row your boat. It's a children's song, but it's really an adult song. It tells you some really adult lessons.
If I remember correctly, you were the only band on the Motorhead label in the 80s to the music video. That music video, right? The other one, I forgot the name of the song, but it was a music video on YouTube.
Idolization.
Yes, and no other band at that time, even last year, nobody did a music video. You were the only band, correct? From the Motorhead
You are
label.
correct, and I'll tell you why. It was taken, it's a live video, and it was taken we played with Black Flag at a festival in Leeds, and they were rich and famous. They had all the video equipment, so they videoed their gig, and because we were a part of that lineup, we got videoed as well. So that's why no one at our level could afford stuff like that in the 80s, and it's a very different world now. But that's the only reason why that exists, was because we played with Black Flag and they had money in the equipment.
That was Black Flag's equipment?
Yeah.
Wow, I would have never guessed.
I was thinking, wow, no other Motorhead bands did a music video except for...
Was that the same fest in Leeds with The Exploited?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Sorry.
I couldn't even do a video.
I don't know.
Black Flag even do a video?
It was all released on Jetty Sounds video, their whole set, but because we played with them and loads of other bands played with them as well, they taped everything. The recording company taped everyone's sets, and all of a sudden it just turned up on YouTube. I didn't know it was
No,
there.
you didn't make it.
We just saw they cut out one song, but I've managed to get all of it now. They cut out one song, and then when you look at it on YouTube, they've put vice versa, walking in her garden right at the beginning of the song. We don't know why and we don't know how, but it's there. And she's a bit of a heroine of ours,
she was.
so we're pleased with that. But we can't tell you how that happened.
Are you still in touch with bands that Lost Cherries Rebel at gig together and stuff?
Yeah, we play with them a lot. And we know Ballet have just done a tour here, and Lost Cherries have just released an album on Grow Your Own Records that we've just been talking about, and we play gigs with them a lot. We play. It's funny, it's like 25, 30 years hasn't happened, because we play mostly with the bands that we played with in the early 80s. Yeah.
But there's also a really good scene at the moment with lots, particularly LGBTQ and women's centre bands coming up, and like Rebellion and other punk festivals have been really invigorated by new bands like the Menstrual Cramps and things,
Petrol Girls, Baby Seals. They got their inspiration mainly from the Riot Girl movement, and they haven't sort of, I don't think, really gone back further, because for them so much came from Riot Girl and beyond. But we were kind of like, almost like we see ourselves as the first wave of trying to push against things that they're doing now. But yeah, we were sort of smaller voices in a much bigger male-dominated field, and they're getting a lot more attention, rightly so, right now. They're in a better time now, basically.
I was gonna ask, so you guys were not only very different at the time, because like you said, it was a very male-dominated scene at the time, and you guys were jolly in a group full of people that see no hope in tomorrow, but also musically, you guys were a lot different from a lot of the bands as well. What inspired all of you musically, like with writing and stuff? Like, what were you guys listening to, or what were you most inspired by? Obviously, you said the Poison Girls had a part of your guys' inspiration. What were some other things that really inspired you socially and musically?
I think the first odd thing was that because we played our first gig 2 weeks after we formed, the first songs we ever played were just the ones we could actually write and strum together in those first 2 weeks, and then over time we've learned to play our instruments, we've learned to express ourselves, and probably at that time we weren't thinking that much about our influences. We were just thinking, what the hell can we write so we can play in 2 weeks' time? But then, having listened and grown up with bands like the Slits, the Raincoats, my favourite band, the Clash, and things like that. So we had a lot of punk bands around us, but then also we then had to become a band very quickly as well. So it's a kind of mixture of those two things. But also, as we've gone on and written new songs, we're better musicians now, and we know more to write about. So we've kind of developed over time.
Yeah, and you guys kind of just initially just ended up developing your own sound in a way too. Like it wasn't anything planned or contrived. It was something that just came naturally for you.
No, we were never a sort of thrashy, angry, three-chord punk band. We all liked different things. We liked sort of disco at the time. Like Chris, our drummer, he's a world-famous techno DJ. He's really he invented acid techno, which is a form of techno I know nothing about, so don't ask me any questions. But we've all had real different influences, and we weren't sort of scared to let that really come through in what I love Boney M, so Dress to Kill is there are similarities, let's put it that way. I don't want a court case.
No, there could be a court case at any moment.
I have just a couple more questions. First, who designed a lot of the artwork for all the Hagar the Womb stuff?
The giraffe was, when I went to Puppy Mansions, the giraffe with the bear was, I drew a giraffe on my bedroom wall, I don't know why, and then this guy who lived with us drew a bear on it, and when we needed a design, all of a sudden the bear just materialised on Word of the Womb, and then we added the giraffe as well. I don't know why. And then for Funnery and a Nunnery, we just thought of the name, and then someone drew a load of nuns going mad in a church. There's no real theme to any of this.
None of it was planned. We would always find people who could produce the art that we needed for that time. And so it wasn't planned, it was just who could we get hold of then that gave us an image that we liked and we could use.
Absolutely.
So as you can see, there was no thought behind any of it.
I think there was.
There's a common theme about this, not much thought, just action.
I guess this is it. Thank you guys so much.
Pleasure, thank you.
Welcome. Entitlement now that there wasn't there.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. We were just going back and just speaking about some of the sexism that you had to deal with in the 1980s and kind of growing out of it, and said you guys would always go around in a gang and kind of just always carry yourself like just kind of with each other and always looking out for each other. Can you tell us more about, just go on about what the scene at that time and then how you kind of all grown from it and became more resilient from it?
I mean, quite often when we played gigs, unless we were lucky, we may be the only women on stage. And at times we did feel threatened, and sometimes some of the other band members may have made unfortunate remarks, or audience members, and we did feel threatened. We had incidents where people threw bottles of piss at us and things like that, but at the same time we had a lot of love and support. But I think we did feel the need to go around as a gang, and there was definitely a sense of us not being treated as seriously as some of the male bands. But then other times, sometimes people liked us more because we were different and a refreshing change. But also there were a lot of other women on the scene, like Vice Versa, like the Lost Cherries, and we sought safety in numbers, and we compared our experiences and got strength from knowing that we were all having a similar kind of problems. But I think it's I did think it was very different this time round, and that women weren't being subjected to this in the same kind of way. But we played a festival recently, Rebellion, and a young LGBTQ women band played and an Oi band played after, and they were subjected to really unpleasant harassment, and actually it made us realise however much we want it to go away, that kind of threat can still be there.
Absolutely.
And so, I think that taught us a lesson, really, that it's not quite as gone as we thought it had.
Absolutely. Do you happen to have any words of wisdom just from learning and playing and doing this for so long to any young LGBTQ people who feel threatened or anything like that? Just like words you would give them of power and progress and how to deal with this problem that seems to never really go away of sexism and hatred in the world?
We would just say, don't let it stop you doing it. Go up, form that band, get up and do it. Make sure you know have your allies around you. Feel as safe as you can, but don't be afraid to stick up for what you believe. And just whatever you do, don't stop doing it. Don't be afraid to do it because you think people out there may be horrible. Because you can learn to laugh at them. You can protect yourself.
Absolutely. Do you have anything to add?
I was just thinking that when we were like 17 and 18, we really looked up to Vice Versa in the Poison Girls as the pinnacle of everything that we wanted to be when we were a bit older and wiser. And now people are coming up to us at our gigs and saying, when I'm older, or I want to be like you, and you've inspired me to go and start a band, and and I think that's great that there's that continuity, that you get some kind of inspiration from the people who've gone before you, and if we, even just by existing, can do that, existing after all this time, because we do feel our age now. Most of the bands that we play with are a lot younger, so we do feel like the Vice Versas of our time. Now we've gone full circle, but it's lovely. It's the best feeling in the world if someone can come up to you and say, you really inspired me, I want to start a band. Amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was gonna ask, kind of going back on a little bit from earlier, I'm involved really with animal rights, and I see a lot of really horrible, atrocious things happening every day with animals and other social justice issues, and sometimes it's really hard to go to sleep at night thinking about all the horrible atrocities happening in the world. And I wanted to ask what your guys' opinion were to all the young activists and all the people that stay up at night thinking about all these horrible things. What is your own personal way that you deal with these kind of issues and try to turn them around and try to keep yourself positive and healthy to keep fighting the good fight and not want to just give up?
because I think things like Greta Thunberg and Extinction Rebellion and things like that are showing that young people need to go out there and fight and show old people like us that, you know, that the planet is being ruined and that we need to be saved. I've been a vegan for 5 years and I'm thrilled now, and it's amazing over here. I've never seen so much vegan cheese. To see
The Beyond Burger.
the Beyond Burger, but just to see how much animal rights and things like that are being taken seriously again. It seemed to have just died away for years and years as an issue, and I think the younger generation are taking this up now and realising that we need to save the planet, and one of the ways is save the animals, stop doing things like that. And so no, we really take heart from that as well.
That's
it
awesome.
seemed to die away for a long time, and now it's coming back.
I know it's very...
Protests seem to die away for a long time, and now it's really, you know, young people are getting motivated and active again in a way that we haven't seen for decades. So it just feels a lot more hopeful, even though the world seems a lot more of a horrible place to be in right now. That is a positive to take from living in these times. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's bringing you a lot of joy now that England is very much about the protest kind of nowadays, as well as with animal rights and stuff. It seems like it's getting very progressive out there as well. I think it's
going to say the Brexit.
Oh no, I'm not gonna bring up that shit right now. I just wanted to say, I wanted to bring up some hopeful things. I know that seems to be a very fast and growing movement of young people in England who are really about animal rights right now too, and I think that's really cool. And I think and to see maybe 30, 40 years ago, the same stuff you guys are fighting for to come back in the youth, it doesn't give you guys a lot of hope for the future?
Absolutely, and you know, I've got 2 teenage children, and I can see people like Greta Thunberg, I can see animal rights activists inspiring them to, you know, really view things in a very different way, and the way they view LGBTQ issues are completely different to when we were growing up, and things like that. No, it's amazing. I think there's been amazing strides in society, but we need to keep fighting. There are pricks out there. We've got Boris, you've got Donald. You know, there's a lot to fight against. For people of all ages need to fight against people like that who are destroying the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have any more questions? Do you have anything? Here you go.
What do you feel like? How do you feel about the complacency and the youth of today? I feel like a lot of the times and even in Britain, especially here, a lot of people become a little bit complacent, especially with social media and everything. It's more social media allows you to feel like you can make a commitment and do.
We had a song about that, which was basically there's no protest anymore because all you need to do is press a button to register your vote or your voice, and so therefore we're not going to see anyone on the streets anymore. But I tell you, in the UK, Extinction Rebellion has turned all of that on its head. Because I don't know if you get the same kind of movement over here as Extinction Rebellion has been active on the streets of London, but they've taken protest to a new art form, I think, and specifically the younger people who are involved. And I find that amazing because, as I said, for decades there was nothing. It seemed like the art of protest had gone. Then it seemed like all we needed to do was sit behind our computers